Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Joby Young. I'm Executive Vice President at American Farm Bureau. And thank you for taking part of your afternoon here at the trade show. What a great trade show to join us for this segment for the next 25 minutes or so. What a great presentation from Dr. Dorn talking about innovation in agriculture. And that's what we're here to talk about, too. This segment is entitled Innovation in Agriculture, Advancements in Biotechnology. And so I know many of our audience here know about all the innovation, all the advancements we've made in agriculture, but just to set the stage first for our discussion, I'm just going to offer a couple stats just on two of our crops, corn and soybeans. And in the past 50 years, U.S. corn yields have increased by nearly 150%, 150, and soybean yields have increased by 115%. If you used 1975 methods to grow corn and soybeans in this country, we need 222 million more acres to do that. Since 2000, the last 25 years, so the time frame, a lot of our folks here in the audience have been farming certainly. We've increased by 41% in corn and 35% in soybeans, and so we'd need 54 more, we'd need 54 million more acres to produce the same amount if we were using methods of the year 2000. So that's a lot of advancements in ag. Obviously, a big part of that is in biotechnology, and biotechnology is a huge part of what we do in agriculture. So many folks know, but it's led to so many of these gains I've just talked about, but a lot more in the future. And so here to talk to me about that today and tell us a lot about that is somebody that has a really cool job, Sylvia Wulf. Sylvia is the Executive Vice President of Agriculture and Environment at the Biotechnology Organization, the world's largest advocacy organization representing biotechnology companies and related organizations in the U.S. and abroad. So her members that she represents, and she wakes up every morning and thinks about these issues, the products that they create come to our members for use out in the field to support farm and ranch families in their efforts to feed the world and bring some of these benefits like sustainability, like food production, disease resistance, productivity in the farm, and a safe and stable food supply to the consumer and to the American family. So thank you for being here with us, Sylvia. And to start, I gave you a brief introduction there, but I'd love to tell us a little bit about yourself and your career. You've had a really cool career, and then also a little bit more about bio.
Happy to do so. What I wanted to say is, first of all, this is my first American Farm Bureau Federation meeting, and so I found this to be so fascinating, and to be able to interact with farmers and ranchers is really something that I enjoy. And to Joey's point, I'm not a scientist, so I'm not a biotechnologist, I'm a business person. And I've spent majority of my career in agribusiness type businesses, companies that are familiar to you like Bunge, Tyson, and US Foods, which is a big food service distributor, and I ran their meat, seafood, produce business. And so I had a chance to interact with many of you as we went out to source different types of products. And so I so appreciate what farmers and ranchers do every day, because without you, we'd starve. And you have a really challenging job, whether it's weather, pests, disease, weeds, whatever it is. One of the reasons that I wanted to join BIO, which, as Joby said, is the largest advocacy organization for life sciences, is because I'm such a believer in bringing you the tools that can make you successful. And our members, many of whom are here, do that every day, and we want to make sure that we're creating the pathway to bring those innovations to you.
Well, thank you, Sylvia, for all that you do. And I'd like to, of course, our audience here uses products from your company or companies that you represent. But I'd like to just roll the clock back a little bit and talk a little bit about the progress we have made. What's the biotech landscape look like over the years? How have we gotten to where we are in that space? And then we can maybe talk a little bit about current events and things that are going to happen in the future. But just set the stage that way for us.
Sure. So everybody knows GMOs. Love them or hate them, they are what make our agricultural industry so productive. And when we think about how that started back almost 50 years ago. We've been consuming GMOs for 50 years. We continue to make investments in both genetically modified products, and now the most recent trend is going to be in gene editing, which is very specifically being able to go in and either knock out or add, connect things in the gene structure of plants as they exist now, as opposed to transgenics, which introduced a different type of genetic structure into the plant. And many of our companies, whether it's seeds, whether it's biostimulants, whether it's pesticides, we're always looking for ways to use nature and biology to be able to provide those solutions.
Absolutely, and I think what our audience experiences that is in the practical use of these. And so, so many advancements over time. You know, I talked a little bit about the increases in productivity, the less use of acreage, sustainability increases there. But there's also all these intangibles like the time in the day that you gain back by having new tools in the tool belt, the food security, the disease resistance, all of these pieces that come together that lead to the value of these advancements in technology. What are some of the tools and recent developments that you spend your day talking most about, and you find are sort of the forefront of our conversation when you're talking to your members, when you're talking to others outside of the bio ecosystem?
So let me start by asking a question. How many of you have heard of the MAHA movement? Make America Healthy Again? So many of our members are now looking at how do I enhance nutrition through gene editing. And so we can speed up what nature does, and then we can address food waste. So think about keeping produce alive in the field longer, okay? So we're not seeing it die. We saw that during the supply chain crisis during COVID. So we can actually edit produce to be nutritionally better for us, to last longer but still taste really good. Those are the kinds of technologies that we're starting to see come to the forefront. And then it's other things like what can we introduce to the soil that makes it better for you to farm or provides better feed alternatives for ranchers, those kinds of things. And so we're looking at biology as a way to create those solutions.
Sure. And as we all know, farmers are price takers, not price makers. We're also we also have to react to consumer sentiment with whether it's around health, whether it's around sustainability, whether it's around any number of things. So we take price. We had to take. We're a customer-focused industry, and we have folks that are downstream that we're feeding and clothing and putting fuel into the gas tank and all these other applications. So those things are important that you mentioned. What's important to consumers, and a lot of really good outcomes that we can have through these technological advances.
You know what's really interesting, Joby, is we have seen a continued believe it or not, continued acceptance of GMOs, particularly in younger demographics. They like technology, and if you can help them understand the why you did it, they embrace it. And we work very closely with the Consumer Brands Association, which, it's all your household names of big food companies. And what we're seeing is less resistance to technology because they see the benefit. And as you said, we've got to be able to give you the tools that continue to keep you healthy from a financial and economic perspective. And so making sure that one of our priorities at Bio is really shortening the time to approval. If you think about it, my company, the most recent one, it took us 25 years to get through FDA. And we were a small company. It takes a lot of money to get these products through FDA, EPA, USDA. And so what we want to do is regulatory reform to really enhance that so that we can bring those cost savings to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And we were talking off stage a little bit about the importance of that research and how it might take 25 years for one product, something similar to that for the next, and these are all being developed, and they take a lot of research, they take a lot of development, a lot of regulatory approval and testing and other things. And so can you talk to us a little bit about that research piece and about, the research in this country? We've led for decades, the U.S. led in agricultural research. We've fallen behind a little bit. It's a big Farm Bureau priority to increase that. I know you guys talk a lot about that too. I'd love to hear your perspective on that.
Right. You know, we're looking at, we're talking a lot about national security right now, right? And food security is national security. Somebody told me that around the world, you're 7 meals away from a revolution if people don't have food. And so what we need to do is continue to lead the world in food production, in biotechnology, and bringing those solutions into the marketplace. But if we look at what's happened, we are now at the lowest spending level since 1970 in terms of agricultural research. China outspends us 2 times, okay? They want to replace the US as the leader in biotechnology. It's a stated goal. And what we want to do is make sure that this administration, Congress, understand what they need to do, which is funding agricultural research so that we can continue to lead the world.
Well, I appreciate that. My next question was actually going to be, what are the priorities now? What are we talking about in the public policy space? As you know, and we've discussed before, the Farm Bill is a top priority for Farm Bureau members, and we're lucky to have, by the way, you're looking out here across in the audience, some of the best advocates and storytellers of the, certainly in the agriculture world, but I would say across any industry, advocates for rural America, for agriculture issues. And so they've spent a lot of time in this great partnership we have in Farm Bureau advocating for a new Farm Bill. The research piece is a great part of that. Have you guys been working on that? Have you been engaged on that? And what do you plan to do in the future in that area?
So if I look at the policy priorities of bio, the first is U.S. competitiveness. We need to make sure we remain the leader. The second is rural rejuvenation. Are we giving you the tools to allow you to continue to be economically viable? This has been a horrible year for agriculture, and everybody knows it. That can't continue. So we need to partner with organizations like the American Farm Bureau Federation so that we take that story to the Hill and that they understand you're putting your whole population at risk if we don't have food. And so I think that there's a lot of collaboration that the 2 organizations can do, and storytelling is one of them. One of the things that I have seen really matter when we go into those Hill offices are the personal stories of farmers and ranchers. We have a big healthcare contingent in bio. And so one of the things that we've learned to do is take patients to the Hill. Are we getting the right kind of treatments approved? Well, it's the same thing for agriculture and environment. It is you telling the story so that they understand how critically important it is to keep our lead in this space. So rural rejuvenation. We also are working on international trade and market access. That's another opportunity with China, okay? Because they don't they don't do the regulatory approval like we do. And that compromises your ability to sell into China, which means it compromises what you can grow because you got to be able to export it. We saw the same thing with the USMCA GMO case. We really worked closely with USTR to have a favorable result. So we're fighting all the time to make sure that you have market access because that's critically important.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm hearing Farm Bill, I'm hearing trade, I'm hearing research, I'm hearing regulatory certainty. A lot of shared priorities with the Farm Bureau community, with the farm and ranching community. You mentioned rural rejuvenation, and that's important too. I mean, having technology and quality of life and other things brought out to our rural communities, economic vitality in our rural communities, that's a super important thing that we spend a lot of time on, our members, all of our states across the country talking about that. Is that something that you guys talk about as well when you're talking about these issues?
We do, and when I think about it, there's a couple areas where I think that we can come together. One is bio-based manufacturing and preference for bio-based, making sure that we've got preference. You think about bio-based fuels. Energy independence is one of the areas where this administration has said we need to be energy independent. That is not an either-or situation. That is an and both. We need everything that we're doing with bio-based fuels as well as fossil-based fuels because it allows us to have energy independence and allows you to use your crops differently, not just food, but fuel as well. And we're working every day to make sure that the right policies are put in place so that in fact you have that outlet.
Yeah, a lot of shared priorities there.
Yep.
I want to talk a little bit, of course, the last few moments here we've been talking about advocating to policymakers and telling that story, and certainly we spend a lot of time on that, but enormous part of what we have to do and we spend time on is just talking to the public. Of course, that's for American Farm Bureau staff, that's a lot of press and social media and things like that. But for our members, it can involve just telling the story to your neighbors and friends and other consumers. For us, farmers and ranchers in this country are 2% of the population. If you scoop up everybody that works in and around agriculture, supply chain, and other things, working, making equipment, selling equipment, and other lines of work, you get about 4% of the population. So when we're talking to that other 96%, it's incredibly good. You mentioned we were talking about being great storytellers. It's incredibly important that we do that in an effective way to our friends and neighbors too, because at the end of the day, policy comes from public sentiment. There's a lot of folks out there that are interested in their food. That's been a growing trend over time. I would say it sort of took a jump up during COVID, of course, the growth of social media and other things. A lot of people interested in their food and the way their food's grown and what the practices are and the tools that farmers and ranchers use, of course. And that's incredible. I think that's an enormous opportunity. Personally, it's like, yes, we want to talk about this. We want to talk about how farmers and ranchers care about the stability and the security of our food, the health and nutrition of it, the fact that it's available and you have so much consumer choice in this country, and it comes from our successful agricultural system. So we want to talk about that, but we want to be effective about it. Obviously, the biotech piece of that and the technology piece of that is part of it. So do you have any advice for the folks here about when we're talking about those, how do we be good storytellers on that?
Yeah, we are actually initiating something called What is Biotech and Why Should You Care? Because we think it's really important that we demystify biotechnology. It's nature accelerated. That's the way I look at it, is when I talk to my friends and neighbors, and unfortunately a lot of people don't know where their food comes from anymore. I live in Arkansas. Pretty much everybody knows where their food comes from. But I'm from Chicago, and I guarantee you, in an urban setting, they think milk comes from a carton. They don't realize it comes from a cow, right? And so we've got to help them understand where their food comes from, demystify biotechnology. And when I talk to my friends and neighbors, I say biotechnology accelerates what would take nature 300 years, okay? That's really what it does. And given the challenges that we face right now, whether it is extreme weather events, different pests, weeds, disease, we got to come up with those answers and those solutions a whole lot faster than we used to be able to, and that's where biotechnology can help.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that demystifying. I love that, and when I hear that, we talk a lot about when I hear you say demystifying, I hear building transparency, building trust, because that when they don't wake up every day and work with these tools, when they don't wake up every day and they're working in agriculture, sometimes we can forget how mystical, to use your term, some of this is, and so it's sort of it's a continuous task that we have, that every morning we wake up we had to start again doing that. And I'm thankful to work with this group of people here at this convention that are so committed to that, because this is the forefront of the agriculture community going out there and telling that story. So we appreciate you being a part of our convention and being here. You'll be here. I think you've been here all day, and so maybe if folks want to chat with you off the stage here, they maybe get a chance to. But do you have any sort of closing thoughts, concluding thoughts for us as we move on to the next session and conclude ours?
I do. Again, I think we all own helping consumers really understand where their food comes from and why we do what we do matters. I think one of the big challenges is that when we think about GMOs, we forgot to share the why with consumers. Why did we do GMOs? Because we needed to make sure that we continue to produce more food on less acres, right? It's intensification. And farmers and ranchers, to me, are the embodiment of environmental stewardship. I mean, you don't have a livelihood if you don't take care of the land and the animals, right? And so to me, that's what we share in terms of how do we help consumers understand we do what's right, we do what's best, and we need the tools to be able to do that. And so help us help you make sure we've got food security because we need national security.
Well, thank you for that, and thanks for all you do in this partnership we have to tell the story of these incredibly important agricultural innovations and technologies that we have. We've come so far. We've led the world. The American food system and agriculture system has been the best in the world for decades. We look forward to continuing to do that. The folks out here in the audience here are going to be the forefront of making sure we can tell that story. We continue to tell it so that we continue to have the stable, affordable, available, nutritious, and secure food supply in the world. I would like to just briefly, we have great partners here in Sylvia. John Torres. John, where are you here? John's a Farm Bureau alumni, worked at AFBF and Maryland Farm Bureau, and so we have an inside man over there at Bio. So we're thankful to have him, and we look forward to that partnership. If folks want to learn more about what you've talked to us here about today, where can they go to do that?
So you can go to the Bio website. It's BIO, the Biotechnology Innovation Organization, and we have an Ag and Environment site on our main website. So you can learn what kind of policies we're trying to promote, how we're helping our members go through the regulatory process. So I'd invite you to check it out.
Absolutely.
And I'm telling my members to go to yours. So.
Yeah, and ours is most of our members out here know is fb.org.
There you go.
An enormous amount of resources on there. So if you're interested in learning more about being good advocates and storytellers on these issues, we invite you to go and take a look at that. Thanks so much for coming and joining us down here in San Antonio and being a part of this convention. We really appreciate that, and we appreciate your partnership.
Thank you, Joby. And
Absolutely.
I really do appreciate being here.
And thanks to all of you.
Okay, thanks.